And I'll say that again. Welcome to the Your Information Show. So there you go. We've put our disclaimer on. I'm going to take the disclaimer off, and we're going to head into the studio right now. So, you know what, Art? I just realized I said the wrong name of the show. Haha. So now you see what you get, and now you know what the show's all about. Long time ago, we used to say, welcome to the Your Information Show. We're not saying that anymore because it's really welcome to Books, Music Review. Books and Music Review, which includes art and everything in between. But we usually recommend a book, so we're going to start off with two topics. We're going to start off with, Gerard, what would you say is the first topic? The Comey one, and then the second one?
James Comey, the FBI director who was recently fired by the president.
That's your mic. And so the first topic is?
The FBI director's firing by the president and maybe the investigation into that dismissal. Although we have a slideshow that talks mostly about the Democrats shifting positions on the FBI director, how they thought about him when he was FBI director under Barack Obama versus Donald Trump.
And another topic about prayer and forgiveness, or forgiveness and prayer. And probably recommend a good book. What book I'd like to recommend is an art book, because summer is coming and people are getting busy with the beaches and vacations and all. And if you haven't got anything in mind, maybe something creative like painting flowers and stuff like that. So I have two book recommendations. One is Clyde Parsons Paints Flowers, and the other one is Reader's Digest. Of course, we always recommend that. And a few other books if we have time. So let's get on to I will put on the screen. You say we have a slide presentation?
Yeah, PowerPoint, I believe. Just
okay, so we'll put that on the
it's
screen.
not.
Continue.
It's a little bit outdated since events have overtaken, but this was put together a while ago when the Democrats were responding very vociferously to Director Comey's firing by President Trump.
So there you go.
And it kind of compares and contrasts how they felt about James Comey last year during the presidential campaign versus this year after he was dismissed by the president.
Okay, would you like to read that? Democrats lose confidence.
Okay, so Hillary Clinton is one of several Democrats who is not a fan of the FBI director prior to his dismissal by President Trump, blaming him obliquely for her election loss, along with Russian interference. And Chuck Schumer is another prominent Democrat who questioned Director Comey, claiming that he had lost confidence in him because of his investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server. He said that he had lost confidence in Comey, despite asserting that he had huge courage during his Senate confirmation. So he shifted positions a little bit in between the election and Director Comey being dismissed by President Trump.
So it sounds like they were both kind of, was it like they were both kind of against Comey, didn't want Comey in and wanted him out? Is that what you're saying?
No, well, I think they didn't like the fact that he went public with the investigation into Hillary Clinton's email server. The fact that he went public with that very close to the election. They claimed that it was responsible for her losing, since she lost very narrowly in a handful of states. They think that was the decisive factor, and that another thing they claim that, even though this isn't part of the presentation, but they claim that he kind of soft pedaled or didn't come out publicly with the investigation into President Trump and his campaign. And they accuse him. Well, right now there's a special counsel investigating the president's his campaign's ties to a couple of different things, but mostly the investigation into Comey's dismissal itself, and they're trying to figure out what the implications of that are. Some people accuse him of obstructing justice by putting pressure, or they allege that he was putting undue pressure on Comey by saying that he shouldn't investigate Michael Flynn, the former national security advisor. So there was a bit of a shift in position now that Comey was the victim or the perceived victim of Trump. And Maxine Waters originally said that the FBI director has no credibility after a closed-door briefing regarding Russian hacking. But she said during the same interview that if Hillary Clinton had been elected, she should have fired him. So one of the things that is interesting is that a lot of people didn't have confidence in Comey, but it didn't have confidence in Comey during the campaign season for how he dealt with the Hillary Clinton email server. It was mostly Democrats, but even after President Trump was inaugurated, a lot of people expected Comey to be dismissed. But he's become a bit of a I wouldn't say hero, but his reputation has been burnished by the fact that he was dismissed by President Trump, allegedly to stop an investigation into his campaign and his appointees.
And you can say whatever you like on the topic, as I'm not really totally political, and I don't know much about it. I do know there was a great shift, and I'm going to switch it to the next slide. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's switch to the next slide. Is that it? Or is that going backwards?
No, you can keep going.
Keep going? How's
Yeah.
that? How's that? Keep going?
Yeah.
Well, let's give. Did they get a chance to read this, or did you discuss that already?
Well, another issue was some papers and stations, also media outlets, kind of soft pedaled the Democrats who did change positions on Comey. So Good Morning America, Robin Roberts admitted Democrats had criticized Comey in the past, but that didn't mean they wanted him fired. And there were a couple of Democrats who did want him fired, as the Maxine Waters quote indicates. They would have wanted him fired if Hillary Clinton had been elected. So he wasn't universally beloved on Capitol Hill, even though his reputation, at least among Democrats, has improved because of what's perceived as an unfair interference by President Trump into an FBI investigation, into a federal investigation. So I think a lot of this is shaped by partisanship. I mean, who you root for in terms of the blue or the red team. But I think that there have been some people willing to admit that Comey wasn't, his actions weren't in keeping with what an FBI director should do, regardless of whether or not you were a fan of Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump.
So Clinton versus Trump.
Okay, so Congressman Tim Walz said that he expressed the belief that he didn't have faith in Comey after a classified briefing, and Adam Schiff complained about disparate treatment given to the two candidates during the election by the FBI director, and that was pertaining to the fact that Trump was being investigated, but it wasn't highlighted in the same way. So they accused Comey of playing favorites.
So was Comey playing favorites, or did it just appear that way?
No, I don't think so. I think he was just doing his job, but a lot of people said he's not. He did it. Have accused him of being overstepping his bounds, of trying to influence these investigations, maybe not to get a predetermined outcome, but just being too ready to jump to conclusions. So, I mean, that's why a lot of people said that he should have been fired, just not in the way that President Trump fired him.
That's interesting. I think we'll go on to the next. I don't know what's on the next slide. I don't know if you do know what's on the next slide, but I think I'll press for the next slide. You are watching the Books and Music Review show. There's a picture. The prior. Oh, let me put this on screen. Let's put this on the screen on camera 3. There's a picture. The prior administration was no fan of the former FBI director. And anytime you want to comment on any of the slide screens, you may comment, and I'll switch to the next
so
one.
President Obama, some of his appointees, I think Valerie Jarrett in particular, didn't like Comey and were not big fans of him. And a lot of people didn't expect James Comey to remain FBI director, regardless of whether Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump won, especially if Hillary Clinton won. I don't think a lot of people expected him to remain in office.
So you think if Hillary Clinton actually won, Comey would have been fired anyway?
Probably. He would have been asked to resign.
And the next screen is Obama aides.
Okay, so like I said, Valerie Jarrett argued that Comey was interfering in the election process and had to be stopped, like a lot of other Democrats. And a biographer of Hillary Clinton said that President Clinton, or wrote that Obama, claimed that appointing Comey was his worst mistake as president.
Wait, who said that?
President Obama, according to a biographer of Hillary Clinton. And Edward Klein should be noted. He's not he's a critic of the Clintons, so he's not completely nonpartisan.
Right.
But he's usually well regarded in terms of his investigative work as a journalist.
I think this is interesting. I never knew that. So Edward Klein, President Obama himself claimed that appointing Comey was his worst mistake as president. That's interesting. We'll get on to the next slide in a moment. And Comey speaks.
Okay, so Democrats now insist, and like I said, this was put together a while ago, but they said they claim that Comey's testimony was an indictment of President Trump, accusing him of obstructing justice. Oh, actually, no. This was more recent. This is based on his testimony before Congress. So yeah, they accused him of obstructing justice based on Comey's testimony, and Republicans, on the other hand, said his testimony was evidence that there was never an investigation of President Trump regarding Russian interference into the election. And there are some people who say there wasn't any evidence of a conspiracy between Russia and the Trump campaign, but the Comey's firing nevertheless indicates that there was some sort of obstruction of justice, even if there wasn't an underlying crime, that firing him while these issues were being investigated was wrong and potentially illegal.
I wonder, though, because I heard something, and like I said, I could be wrong. I'm totally non-political. But what I heard recently, just a couple of days ago, whatever, is that somebody had said that, as the president, he's the top guy, he technically can pretty much fire anybody he wants to fire, and that's not illegal for him to fire anybody he wants to fire. So how could firing Comey be illegal?
Yeah, that's true. He could have fired him at any time, and their accusation is based on the fact that he fired him after meeting with him and discussing Michael Flynn, an investigation into Michael Flynn, and they said it was that this is evidence that he's trying to stop a federal investigation.
Is that when he said he just wanted him to like lay low on it or something?
Yeah. He said that he wanted him to stop. I forget the phrase he used, but he basically didn't want him to pursue an investigation of the National Security Advisor.
I think that's kind of interesting because even as president, though, he can actually, like, technically, as far as the legal aspect of it, he can fire anybody he wants during whatever time he wants to. And the thing about Trump's personality, like from the time that he first ran, he has a certain personality, right? He doesn't hold back. He's like all out in the open. It's like transparent what he thinks, pretty much what he thinks he says, right? So if he was like insinuating to Comey or like trying to mildly pressure him to stop an investigation, that's totally out of character for Trump. Because if Trump wants to do something, he's just like, do this, do that, fire him. Wouldn't he be more direct and say something like, you know what, you better stop that investigation? That sounds more like Trump.
Yeah. Someone, in fact, I think Greg Gutfeld was joking about this, that he talks like a normal, like he doesn't know the.
Talks like a business person, not like a politician.
Yeah, he doesn't know protocol, how to do these types of things. Like, there were other presidents who've tried to influence federal investigations, but I suppose they did it in a more diplomatic way or less less obvious way.
Okay, I'll go to the next slide. I don't have any idea what's on the next slide. Do you? Do you know what's next?
This one?
Let's see what's on the next slide.
Okay,
those
so
are
these
the credits, and the show's not over, but we're going to give the credits anyway. And those are the credits for some of the slides that you saw. And now we're going to go back, and I'll take that off the screen. And we do have another presentation, another topic to talk about. Let's go to camera. I think we'll just stick with that camera. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to show the produce through because we got to do that before the show is over. And we'll go to produce through. Hold on a second. That was my mistake. Let's see, graphics 1. We are produced through the facilities of the Staten Island Community Television. And we're going to put the email on the show, or the copyright. And we'll put the email address up. Let me see where that is. Yeah, you can go to that site, too. That's kind of cool. Oh, somebody moved the email address. Okay, you can go to that site if you want to see some of the art. Okay, so I'll go back into the studio. So it's Books and Music Review. If you want to write to us, go to books.musicreview@gmail.com. That's books.musicreview@gmail.com. I don't know what camera I'm on. Am I on that camera? That's it. Okay. So,
No, I think you're on the other one, aren't you?
it's possible. Okay, so what's our next topic? What are we going to talk about? Should we recommend books or should we go to prayer and forgiveness? We actually have 9 minutes and 50. I'm going to show the book that I kind of like just on screen since it's big and it'll show that camera. It is Claude Parsons' very old book of How Claude Parsons Paints Flowers. And why? Because it's summer and flowers are beautiful. No, can't see that. Too much light. That's a rose. Okay, so that's one of the books we recommend, and also Reader's Digest. Go to your libraries and get Reader's Digest. I was looking at this issue, and it's May's issue. But some of the things that I really think that are kind of interesting are there's the Nicest Place in America contest. There's How a Veteran Sees the World. 44 Secrets to Feeling Younger at Any Age, if that's really what you're interested in. And what I liked is alarming 13 home security tips from burglary experts. So those are some good topics. I'm going to put the other, I think we have time for the other presentation, prayer and forgiveness.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to put that on screen. Meanwhile, you can say whatever you want to say while you're waiting. I'm just going to switch to the other camera. We're on Saturdays usually on, what are we on, 12:30?
Yeah, 12:30
We're on Saturdays at
afternoon.
12:30. We will start the other presentation. Let's see if we can find it. Oh, goodness. Where is it? Here it is. Okay, so you're watching the Books and Music Review Show. And it is about prayer. And what else?
Forgiveness.
And forgiveness. Is this the right presentation that I have up? Let's see if I can switch to camera 3. It's prayer for caring about your enemies. And is that the right presentation?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. I did something right. I make a lot of mistakes. Reasons for forgiveness. Oh, can I say that's my photograph?
Oh, yeah.
I happen to like that photograph. It's taken at one of the scenic overlooks, and I think I'm leaning on that. And what you see is the mountains in the background, the stone wall in front, and that beautiful scene from nature. You want to say a little bit about this presentation?
Okay, so there's a lot of... it's basically based on the idea that you can't really hold a grudge against someone without hurting yourself. So there are a lot of practical benefits to forgiving, even if you're not religious. Some of these are just improvements in your health: lower blood pressure, a stronger immune system, better heart health, less anxiety.
That makes sense. And as we go further into the topic, we talk about renewal. Another one of my photographs, that's a forsythia, which is a pretty nice flower.
And there have been studies that have actually validated this. For example, a study in the Journal of Pain showed that patients inclined to forgiveness reported lower levels of back pain. Those with chronic back pain reported problems forgiving people who had wronged them. Social psychology and personality science conducted a study which demonstrates that forgiving is healthy for us emotionally and physically.
And so forgiving is for the person who's forgiving the person. That is where the health benefits come in, which is an excellent. Then there is the religious basis for forgiveness, and there's two different kinds, religious and spiritual. So as far as the religious basis of forgiveness, for those that believe in Jesus,
we're told to love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. And this was a novel concept. Followers of Jesus were learning to embrace something new. Instead of cursing your enemies and praying for your neighbors, they were told to return good for evil.
that makes sense. You know, I'm thinking we can even apply that to politics if we think about it. Everybody who saw the opposing party as the enemy, or the opposing, or if your candidate did win or didn't win, or whichever one you were kind of against, maybe it's time for forgiveness and moving on. That's just my opinion. And a biblical basis.
So there are other parts of the Bible where we're urged to forgive those who have hurt us. For example, in Luke 6:28, we're told to bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. And in Peter 3:9, we are told not to repay evil for evil. Instead, we should pay them back with a blessing.
That makes sense. You know, I found just from looking at the world and looking at what happens in the world, usually when someone tries to repay evil for evil, it's almost like evil is a boomerang. And so they'll send out that evil and it will go and it will be aimed at the person and it will just come right back to the person. So you really can't repay evil with evil. However, there are other things you can do. You can pray.
Yeah, so you can pray for God to rid yourself of anger, rage, malice, slander, and filthy language, or help those be. You could also pray that's a prayer for other people who wronged you. Pray that they will accept God and become one of God's children. Pray that they will come to know the peace of Christ and it will rule in their hearts.
That all makes sense, and that's all from the Bible. Can I make a comment also about that? When I think about it, I don't have any. I think I don't have any enemies. But if I think about somebody that's full of anger or something like that, I would pray for them. If I have to pray for my enemies, which I'm instructed by the Bible to do, I would pray that they enjoy a long, healthy life, like somewhere else, like overseas. You know, I say like, I hope that they have and pray that they have a healthy life over in Italy or in Spain or in France, rather than like next door to me or 5 blocks away from me. But that's just my take on prayer and forgiveness. Who is that?
That's Corrie ten Boom.
And who's Corrie ten Boom? I've heard of her.
She was a woman whose family helped to save Jews during the Holocaust, and her sister were detained and put into a series of concentration camps. So she was born to a Christian family which helped Dutch Jews escape the clutches of the Holocaust. She was imprisoned, and even when she watched her sister die, she said, "There's no pit too deep that he's not deeper still."
Wow. I just realized we only have 2 minutes and 42 seconds left. So I like this part about forgiving doesn't mean letting someone who is abusive back into your life. A lot of people don't realize that aspect of forgiving.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, go.
You can forgive a person who's wronged you from a distance.
From a distance.
Forgiveness allows you to move on with your life. Don't allow someone else's actions to dictate how you live your life. That's basically.
Yeah, so what we're saying is forgive in your heart, but it doesn't mean you have to talk to the person. It doesn't mean you have to pay any attention to the person. It doesn't mean that you have to be next to the person. So forgiveness is in the heart and from the heart. And if you have somebody who's abusive, stay far away from them. We have 1 more minute. Those are the credits as far as that goes. And what should we do? I'll put the screen back on the studio. We have a minute left. This is the Books.Music Review Show, and you can see some of the art over there. We'll go back into the studio right now. So there you go. We've been watching the Books.Music Review Show, produced through the Staten Island facility. So what do you have to say? You've got 1 minute and 20 seconds. What do you have to say? Look into your camera and say whatever you like. It's your last thought.
Sorry for
the show.
For the camera. I knew I should.
No, I do the camera mistakes. No apologies. Go for it.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize the idea that if you can forgive, you should try. I think a lot of people, including me, haven't forgiven and the people that they should or accepted forgiveness. I think that's also a big issue. A lot of people aren't willing to accept forgiveness, and it really is better for you if you're able to accept forgiveness and forgive others.
And I think one of the most important things is you really can't forgive somebody. I mean, as far as acceptance, you have to have somebody apologize in order for you to forgive them, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the key with somebody doing something over and over and over. If they don't apologize, they'll probably continue to harm and continue to offend. But I just realized I was giving you the last word and time is up, and I'm so sorry. So that was our show. But we'll be back.